Hey everyone, it's Jordan. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. On this channel, we do an array of different videos, such as vlogs or Doctor Who videos like this one. So if any of that interests you, make sure to click the subscribe button while you are here. Last year, I did a video ranking every episode of the 15th Doctor's first season. Now I'm back again to rank every episode of his second and unfortunately last season. I'll touch more on it at the end of this video, but for now, I just want to say I was absolutely devastated to see Ncuti Gatwa leave as the Doctor. Now, Season 2, aka Series 15, was a whirlwind of fun for me, and I enjoyed pretty much every single episode. Well, almost every single episode. But we will address the elephant in the room shortly, so be sure to stick around for that. Now, I will also be including Joy to the World in this ranking, just like I did with The Church on Ruby Road last year, so that means I will have 9 episodes to rank. So, without further ado, let's step into the TARDIS with the 15th Doctor one last time and get started on this ranking. Now, when I heard that Stephen Moffat was writing another episode for Doctor Who, I already knew I was going to enjoy it, and I did exactly that. This episode was so much fun and pure Stephen Moffat, a time hotel that allows guests to visit different points in history. That's just like such a cool concept to me, and it's just a genius idea. So I was very excited for this episode. Obviously, I was excited to see Nicola Coughlan in this episode. I hadn't actually seen anything with her in it before this, other than some clips from her in Bridgerton on TikTok or something like that. But I did know that people loved her and her acting. I think that her and Ncuti Gatwa had some really good chemistry, so it was really cool seeing her in this episode. But I think that the standout in this episode was definitely, by far, Anita. Watching the Doctor and Anita develop their relationship over that year that he was working there and staying there with her was just so cool. I love seeing a more domestic side of the Doctor. That is one of my favorite things ever. I said it then, and then I said it again during the finale, but I thought that Anita was very much on her way to potentially becoming the Doctor's next companion. Well, before that happened, but from the way I was viewing it, that looked like the direction the show was going in. Now, I know a lot of people were very divided over the end of this episode when she merged with the Starseed and basically became the Star of Bethlehem. Me personally, I think that it fit her little arc in this episode perfectly. However, my biggest and pretty much only gripe with this episode is that god-awful visual effect when Joy is merging with the Starseed. That looks like something straight out of like 2005 Doctor Who, back when they had really bad special effects. Actually, no, it's probably worse than that, honestly. I think 2005 Doctor Who was better than whatever this visual effect was. Disney budget where? Overall, it was a decent and enjoyable episode, but compared to some of the bangers that are coming up in this season, I do have to place this episode at number 6. Next up, we have the first proper episode of the season, The Robot Revolution, and with it, we have the introduction of our next companion, Belinda Chandra, played by none other than the marvelous Varada Sethu. In this episode, Belinda is kidnapped by robots, and she is taken to a planet called Miss Belinda Chandra 1, where she ends up meeting the Doctor. But wait, right before she's taken, we find out that her neighbor is none other than Mrs. Flood. Another case of some lady popping up in every single episode. Am I experiencing deja vu, or did we just see this exact same thing happen last season with Susan Triad? Anyway, this was a much stronger start to the season than Space Babies was. I was actually pretty enthralled by this entire episode. I think that my favorite part of this episode was the concept of the robots not being able to hear every 9th word spoken. And then the scene between the Doctor and Belinda where he's like talking to her and kind of like getting her to realize that that's how they can communicate. I feel like that was like setting up their relationship and their dynamic really well. Or so I thought. I thought that was the dynamic they were gonna have, but we'll get to that too. In this episode, Belinda is introduced as a very strong character, one who is unafraid to clap back or question the Doctor. And I especially liked when they were in the TARDIS at the end of the episode, and Belinda is calling the Doctor dangerous and saying that she is not just one of his adventures. Someone needed to call the Doctor out like that, so kudos to you for saying that.
Mama, kudos for saying that, for spilling.
I just wish that Belinda had kept the same energy all throughout the season. However, she did not. I rank The Robot Revolution at number 4. Moving on to Lux. Based off the trailers of seeing the animated Doctor and Belinda for this episode, I was chomping at the bit to get to this one. We see the Doctor and Belinda land in 1952 Miami, Florida to use the Vindicator, and they end up stumbling across a whole missing person situation thing. And you know the Doctor cannot resist one of those. We meet Mr. Ring-a-Ding, aka the God of Light, and he is one unhinged little cartoon man. And we also get to see the Doctor and Belinda break the fourth wall, where they end up making Whovians, actual fans of Doctor Who, finally made an appearance in the show, and it was the most glorious thing I have ever seen. And also something about it was like strangely emotional. It really tugged on my heartstrings, especially the part when the Doctor and Belinda were saying goodbye to them. I actually like kind of, I don't know, I felt this tightness in my chest. But there's not really much to say about this episode other than that. I absolutely loved it. And that is why Lux is going at number 3. Okay. The one we have all been waiting for, The Well, aka the sequel to the horror-esque episode Midnight, all the way back from series 4. Now beforehand, I annoyingly saw the leaks about this episode and what the villain was going to be, but somehow that didn't make the reveal any less bone-chilling for me. This episode was absolutely exquisite from the very first 5 seconds to the very last 5 seconds. One of the first things I noticed about this episode was the little like Bad Wolf theme motif playing when the Doctor and Belinda were falling down to the planet. Actually, now that I think about it, I wonder if that could be like some sort of subtle foreshadowing to the fact that Billie Piper was going to come back later in the season. I don't know. It could have just been, you know, Murray Gold's choice to use the music there. But I'm going to just, you know, decide that it is some subtle foreshadowing. Also, another thing I loved about this episode was Alice. She made me feel the perfect mixture of apprehension and pity, and I was literally just like on the edge of my seat the entire time she was on the screen, and she really just kept my attention very, very well. Also, that reveal when the Doctor actually realizes that he's back on Midnight, the goosebumps I got were literally as big as Mount Everest, Mount Fuji, Mount Kilimanjaro. But I do want to give a special shout out to Ncuti Gatwa for his performance in this episode. The way he conveyed the Doctor's fear from centuries ago and actually made it believable, like he had lived that entire time but could still remember that like visceral fear that he felt at that time. That's just insane. He is so incredibly talented, and we were so lucky to have him as the Doctor. This episode just really proved that. The ending of this episode had me shook to my core. Oh, you think they're all going to escape? You think Shia has sacrificed herself to get rid of the Midnight Entity? Well, no. It is Doctor Who, and you cannot expect something like that to happen. The Midnight Entity not only survives, but also makes it off the planet, which is something the Doctor did not want to happen the entire time. So now I think we're going to need a Midnight Part 3 to tie all of this up. I think that's what we need. This episode was just absolutely brilliant, and I was glued to the screen the entire time while watching it, which is why I am shamelessly placing this episode right at the top at number 1. First off, Conrad. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's proceed. Lucky Day sees none other than the ravishing Ruby Sunday make a return, and I could not be happier to see her back. Despite Ruby not really getting that much development in her first season, I actually feel like something about Millie Gibson's charm just draws me in and makes me want to see more of her. So that's why I personally was so excited to see Ruby back. Now, we see Ruby having some trouble adjusting to life without the Doctor, which is understandable. It was really, really interesting for me to see a companion handle their life after running around time and space dealing with aliens and monsters. Like, obviously you're sure to have some sort of like PTSD or something like she did. Millie Gibson absolutely shined in this episode, and dare I say, this is her best performance ever. Like, as Ruby Sunday, she was just exquisite in this episode. And then there's the case of her boyfriend, Conrad. I'm sure we have all met people like Conrad in our lives and wish that we hadn't. Watching Conrad betray Ruby was very upsetting after leading her on, but by the end of the episode, she kind of got her lick back until Conrad gets his bigger lick back later on. But I cannot move on from this episode without mentioning that scene between the Doctor and Conrad in the TARDIS. God, I freaking love when the 15th Doctor shows his dark side. There's really nothing like it, and it just gives his character so much depth. And this is it done right. Like, this is how you do the dark 15th Doctor. This was perfect. I rank Lucky Day at number 5. And next we have The Story and the Engine, an episode that Ncuti himself had been really looking forward to. And now it's finally happened. And what an episode that was. The Doctor and Belinda go to Lagos, Nigeria, where the Doctor is kind of like already set up a relationship with a local barber there. The bit where he's like kind of talking about being black for the first time and feeling at home in this place in Nigeria, that just like, that was one of those scenes of Doctor Who that is just like, I don't know how to describe it. That's quintessential Doctor Who. That is what Doctor Who should be. These little kind of like character building scenes that give the characters so much depth. That is what is important for Doctor Who. And I really wish we could have had more black writers for Ncuti's era, but unfortunately we didn't, and he was really robbed of that because this episode really just proves how good a black written episode could be. Now, I will say, watching this episode for the first time, I was just a tiny bit confused about the whole concept of the barbershop on the spider's back. But after kind of watching it again and it's kind of seeing other people talk about it, I started to understand it more. This episode was really creative, so fun, so unique, very refreshing. I would love to see the writer for this episode come back and write more episodes in the future. And of course, it is always a joy to see more of Joe Martin. My issue with that is I just really wish that she would have a bigger role than just coming back for a cameo, you know, in an episode here, an episode there. She is worth so much more than that. She deserves so much more than that. And then the ending of this episode, something about it, it just exudes that classic Doctor Who story. It is the essence of Doctor Who. This is exactly what Doctor Who should be. That's what I said about this episode when it first came out, and I still stand by that. This episode was just absolutely amazing. I loved it. The resolution to it was perfect. And it just made me feel so much, and it just made me fall even more in love with the 15th Doctor. Which is why I rate The Story and the Engine at number 2. Now, here is where the season starts to go downhill. Earlier, I said I enjoyed almost every episode. This season was filled to the brim with bangers, but the Interstellar Song Contest is that exception. I just really could not get into this episode, and it was just so bad to me. It was just bad. Now, one of my issues with this episode was the dialogue. It just felt corny or cringy or forced. And I know Doctor Who has a history of being cringy or corny. Like, that is just what Doctor Who is. But I don't think Doctor Who has ever been so consistently cringy like it was in this episode. For example, when the Doctor is talking to Kid and he tells him, "You have put ice in my heart, darling." Something about that line just makes me cringe so bad. It's like they were trying to make it sound big and dramatic and menacing, but it really just came off like something I would have written in my Doctor Who Wattpad fanfictions when I was 12. Or, not too long after that, when Belinda said, "If the Doctor is angry, then the whole world is going to shake." Miss Mamas, what world? You guys are on a space station. What world? What is going to shake other than the space station? What are you talking about? I found myself cringing and grimacing and wrinkling my nose at so much of this, and it just really left me kind of embarrassed to watch this episode. Not to mention the Doctor's behavior. He was so terribly mischaracterized in this, it was almost laughable. Now, I understand the Doctor being angry and getting triggered over someone trying to commit the G word. And also, I know that I said I like when the 15th Doctor shows his darker side, but there is a nuanced way to do it that works, and this was not it. This was not it at all. However, there was one high that came out of this episode, and that goes by the name of Dugga-doo, dugga-doo, dugga-dugga, dugga-doo, 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 dugga-dugga, dugga-doo. I'm just kidding. That wasn't the only high that came out of this episode. But Dugga-doo is forever established as one of the most iconic things in all of Doctor Who. But no, for real. I did also like the return of Susan. This was something I had been waiting for forever. And I'm sure a lot of other people have been waiting for this forever as well. It has been decades since the Doctor last saw her. I just wish that Ncuti had actually stuck around long enough to meet her and finish her arc. Oh, and also, we get to see Mrs. Flood not only bigenerate, but also reveal that she's the Rani. Anyway, after all that, I'm sure it comes as no surprise that I rank the Interstellar Song Contest at number 9. Going into Wish World, I had no idea what to expect. The TARDIS had just blown up, and now suddenly we're in this 1984-esque suburban utopia slash dystopia life, and we don't really know how we got here. I do think that the strongest part of this episode was the beginning half, when we see the Doctor, or John Smith, and his wife, Belinda, just living this, domestic, perfect, quote-unquote life. It was so interesting and eerie, and of course, there is their daughter, Poppy. Which still doesn't make the most sense to me, but what the hell. And of course, we see Conrad living with the two Ronnies and a baby God of Wishes that they just got from 1865 Bavaria. And they're all up inside this bone palace over London. And you know what? Why not? Why not? Nothing else makes sense in this episode, so why not throw all this in there with it? And then the tail end of this episode, we just got a lot of words, a lot of exposition, just the Ronnie explaining every single thing that's happening, that is going to happen. Girl, I don't know, but it was a mess. It's like they were juggling too many balls at once, and the balls just went everywhere. Wish World goes at number 8. Now, to be honest, at the time of filming this, I have only seen this episode one time. And the final, 20-ish minutes of this episode dominated everything else, so I might have a little trouble remembering the first part. But what I do remember is the Ronnie basically freeing Omega from the Underverse just for him to eat her, and then Mrs. Flood to escape, and then the Doctor to use the Vindicator to blast him back into the Underverse. I don't know. It didn't hit the mark for me. So anticlimactic, such a waste of bringing back Omega. But let's face it, these last 2 seasons have just proven that Russell T Davies does not have a clue on how to write a good finale that kind of ties everything up. Also, I'm still confused about the whole Poppy situation. She's the baby captain from Space Babies, but now she's Belinda's actual daughter, and she has been the whole time. Even though the Wish World is gone, they wanted to keep her. I don't know. It's just really confusing. There was too much going on in both of these episodes, Wish World and the Reality War, and they were just trying to tie everything up, and it went everywhere. It was not good. It went everywhere. And also, when Poppy disappeared, I did get the vibe that while yes, the Doctor was going to do everything in his power to go find her, and that he might be the only one to be able to actually do that, I didn't expect him to sacrifice himself to get it done. I thought that basically the whole arc of the next season was going to be him going and finding Poppy, going and finding a way to get her back. I didn't expect him to blast his regeneration energy into the time vortex and shift it 1 degree to bring her back, whatever that actually even means. So I don't really know what happened behind the scenes that caused Ncuti Gatwa to have to step down. But despite what anybody says, there were so many things pointing to the fact that he was supposed to have a 3rd season. So I'm really, really disappointed that he wasn't able to, because I feel like he was really just getting into the groove of things, and his Doctor was really, really getting started, and we were figuring out who he was. But before the Doctor does regenerate, who do we see come back? We see the 13th Doctor, aka Jodie Whittaker, make a return in 2025, the big 2-5. When I heard her voice in this episode, I'm like, wait, maybe it's just a recording, but then I saw her. If you know me, you know that I absolutely love the 13th Doctor. That was the first era that I actually watched the Doctor from start to finish. So she holds a very special place in my heart, and to see her back with one of my other favorite Doctors, I don't know, I just felt like a kid. I was so happy. And of course, we got Phasmin Crumbs in the year of our Lord, 2025. We were able to hear the Doctor confess that, she needs to tell Yaz that she does love her. She never does, but Yaz knows that she does. I was literally screaming. But then it was time to say goodbye. The Doctor opens the doors of the TARDIS so as to not be alone in his final moments. He sees the Star of Bethlehem. He sees joy off in the distance. And honestly, this part was really beautiful, actually. The music really sealed the deal on this whole scene. I didn't cry watching it initially, right? It wasn't until after the episode ended and I went back and watched the scene, I feel like it kind of really hit me. Oh my god, it was so bad. I was sobbing. I was sobbing. And also when he said, "This has been an absolute joy," I knew that that wasn't the doctor speaking. That was Ncuti Gatwa speaking. That was Ncuti Gatwa saying that his tenure as the doctor was one of the most fun things he's ever done, was something that he is going to take with him forever. Oh my god, and it just makes me really emotional right now. I literally cried 3 times the day of the finale. It was not a pretty sight.
You cried more than that.
Okay, but you don't have to call me out. And then, who do we see him regenerate into? It is none other than Billy Piper. Rose Tyler, the bad wolf, the moment. I still don't know what direction this is going to go in. I can only sit here, turn on BBC Doctor Who's post notifications, and wait patiently. So lastly, I would rank the Reality War at number 7. There we have it. All 9 episodes of Ncuti Gatwa's final season as the 15th Doctor, ranked by yours truly. I just want to say, despite the season's flaws, it will remain a very distinct set of adventures for me. And I'm definitely always going to remember this season. There were so many good moments and so much talent went into making this season, and I definitely won't forget that. And to Ncuti Gatwa, thank you for being the Doctor. As someone who questioned their sexuality growing up, and as someone who is now living proudly as an adult, knowing who they are because of people like you helping me realize who I was, it was incredibly special to have you as our Doctor. You will always have a very special place in my heart, and you will most certainly always be one of my favorites. I am devastated that you're gone, and I really wish that you could have had more time. And God, if what I'm about to show you doesn't prove that, then I don't know what will. Roll the tape.
Ooh, that sand is so white. And the water's so blue.
They used to say where those pictures were taken, but I don't know why it's not.
Let me know down in the comments below if you agreed or disagreed with my ranking. How would you personally rank the episodes of Ncuti's last season? What did you think of Ncuti Gatwa leaving? Honestly, any thoughts you have about this entire thing, please leave them down below. I would love to discuss them. Thank you guys so much for watching. It has been an absolute joy.